Buddy. So I want to just hit some high points for section or chapter 3, section 1. So these are types of studies, and I want to clarify some things that have traditionally created some issues before. So um, we have four types of studies or sampling techniques that seem to need some clarification. So we're going to start off with random sampling versus simple random sampling. So a random sample is when everybody in the population has an equal chance of being selected. Now, that's different than simple random sampling. And to be fair, I'm not really sure why they call it simple random sampling, because it's actually a little more complicated than that. So, simple random sampling is when every group of size n has an equal chance of being selected. So let me clarify. So suppose that there are 3 people in the population: Bob, Susie, and Sally. Okay. So we're going to choose all of the possible samples of size 2. So the thing you got to think about here is that it's with replacement. So I pull Bob out, I write down Bob, and I put the actual person Bob back in the hat. And so I could have Bob Bob. I could have Bob Sally. I could have Bob Susie. I could have Sally Bob, Sally Sally, Sally Susie. Every sample of size 2 has an equal chance. So we list all of these samples of size 2, put them in a hat, and we shuffle it around, and we pull out the sheet of paper, and we go, that is the sample that we're dealing with. So it's every sample of size something has an equal chance of being selected. So they're different. Now we have I'm looking again because I need it from my notes. All right, we have stratified sample and we have cluster sample. So they both have natural groupings occur, but how we sample them are different. So in stratified sample, an example would be we have freshman, we have sophomore, we have junior, we have senior. And we take a little of each one of the groups and sample them. So we have natural grouping, but we're taking a little bit of each. Cluster sample has natural groupings, but we actually study all of a group or all of 2 groups. We just don't study all of the groups. Cluster sample requires an idea, and it's a tough idea to prove or to verify, and that is that all of the groups are acting alike. So this is an example of when it doesn't work. So if I say Detroit, Miami, and Los Angeles, these are 3 cities that have natural groupings. But if I study all of Detroit, that's not going to tell me a lot about anything in California or anything in Florida. But I still had to test all of it for it to be a cluster sample. Now, I might be able to argue that Detroit and Cleveland and Cincinnati and Chicago are a lot alike. And we might even be able to say that they're similar enough that we could run a cluster sample. So then we go and we study the whole of Detroit. And we might do the whole of Cleveland, but we don't do all of the cities. And then we use those results to predict what's going to happen in the other cities. So again, stratified sample has grouping, cluster has grouping. But the difference is a stratified sample takes little bits from each of the groups. The cluster sample takes all of one or all of two. Okay? Now, there is also uh, a type of sampling called systematic. And systematic, and where the randomization comes into play, is, and let's picture a neighborhood, and just, you know, give you an idea here. My wife and I lived in a neighborhood for a short period of time where all the houses were basically the same. Everybody made about the same kind of money and so forth. And so what they did was to do a survey in that neighborhood. They would randomly select by rolling a die, for instance. They'd roll the die and they say, oh, the six popped up. So we're going to start at the sixth house. And then they roll the die again and they get a three to pop up. Oh, okay, so we're going to go every third house after we start at the sixth house. So you're creating a system, and that system that's created has some sort of randomness in it. And you need to catch that little piece, because randomization is huge in all sampling. It's how we avoid getting bias. Okay. Now, there's another type of studying, observational versus experimental. And experimental is when you are trying to control the variables. You're in a small space potentially, and what you've done is you've created a maze, and all of the sounds are filtered out. So you're trying to isolate a certain variable to be able to experiment on and see the results of that variable. Observational studies are studies that are done afterwards or during, and I'll just talk real quick about my cousin, and I'm not trying to be morbid, and she battled breast cancer for approximately 10 years and eventually passed due to breast cancer. But she journaled the whole time, and they've taken her journals, and there was a whole group of women who had a similar experience, and they journaled, and they took all these journals, and that's an observational study. It's what is the person feeling, and that kind of thing. So it's very loose. Experimental studies are very controlled and trying to get good prediction results. Observational is trying to get a good prediction results, but it's more based on what the individuals are saying. So it's a very different type of study. So those are the things that I need you to pull out of chapters section 1.3. All right. Hopefully that helps, and you have a good day.